Welcome. Hi, Maribel. All right, today we are doing Latinos in the World War II experience, and we are going to put it under the barometer of just war doctrine from the Catholic Church. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the page. Fernando, welcome. All right. All right, so hopefully you can see that. So what I do is I give a brief rundown on just war doctrine, coming from St. Augustine of Hippo and some of the patristic writers of the Catholic Church, in starting like in the 400s AD. And they broadly put it under two categories, right? And with just war doctrine is they contended that there are circumstances, special circumstances, in which a good Catholic can take up arms and fight and kill in battle and need not worry about having the sin of murder attributed to his soul in the afterlife or in this life as well. So at any rate, they had notions of holy days in which fighting was not to take place. They had reasons for which they would fight, and oftentimes it was they called it despoliation. If one aggressor came in and dispossessed a group of people, attacked them, murdered them, engaged in pillage and so forth, then clearly that was warranted to check the aggression of the aggressor. All right. So the two broad categories for which they were known were kind of summed up by Hugo Grotius, later in the early modern era, a Dutch humanist who kind of secularized these notions. And he contended, right, that the reasons, he had Latin terms for it, casus belli, the reasons for which you fight, as well as bellum, oh gosh, jus ad bellum, the manner by which you fight as well, must abide by their rules. All right. And so at any rate, that I should be able to rectify that. Sorry about that if you saw that. Um, I have I have it plugged in actually, which is strange. It says you might want to plug in your computer, and it is plugged in. Um, Give me just a moment. Yes. Um, anyway, um, let's see here. The Yeah, that is plugged in. So at any rate, let's see here. So moving on to the material, right? Is what we contend in the first one was that fascism was violently, forcefully, coercively being spread from these fascist bully countries. And that alone constitutes a reason for humanity to help by way of the old chivalric code to help defend the weak against the strong. All right. And I try to make the argument that fascism was not just internationally um, uh, dangerous as far as its stripping of people of their rights to self-determination. That had become a big term after Woodrow Wilson and his 14 points at the end of World War II. He said any people who share a history, a culture, a language, an ethnicity, he called it a race at that time, um, that they constitute a people who are entitled to elect their own leaders and have their own autonomy or sovereignty as a separate nation, as a separate people. And so that had long gone into the notions of just war doctrine and international law. And clearly, the fascist countries were violating that. As you may be aware of, Japan invaded Korea, and then after Korea invaded Manchuria, and after Manchuria invaded China. All right, and they refused to leave. We tried to give them ultimatums as a nation, the famous moral embargo depriving them of scrap metal and oil, saying that we won't promote their imperialism. And but nevertheless, right, when they um, when they attacked us on Pearl Harbor, they simultaneously hit Malaysia and Southeast Asia, and very quickly, and it clearly was planned and for quite some time. And they started taking most of the Pacific. So they went into Burma, Vietnam. Um, I'm not sure about Thailand and Cambodia. They went into Dutch Borneo because it had a lot of oil, it had a lot of petroleum, and took Dutch Borneo. They went into Singapore and took Singapore despite being outnumbered 3-1. They got the British forces there to surrender at Singapore. And so this was a well thought out imperialistic design. And the euphemism that they used was Pan-Asian co-prosperity sphere, Asia for the Asians. Because in their defense, like some of the places I just mentioned, were inhabited by Western powers, the United States and the Philippines and Guam and Hawaii, right, had grabbed those places as well. So at any rate, then when you go to Europe proper, you have Germany, and Germany defied its requirements